All right. Thank you so much for joining us for our event today. My name is Gareth Dyke. I'm a journal editor. I work with EdAnts. I work with Bentham Science, and we've come together to provide you with a series of webinar training presentations that we hope will help you to enhance your career. Now, in our presentation today, we're going to be talking about academic branding. We're going to be talking about how you can improve your visibility, your network, and career opportunities. Let me say again that this is a presentation brought to you by the team at Bentham Science, EdAnts, and the Learning Lab. The Learning Lab is part of EdAnts Scientific Solutions. You can log on. I'll show you how to log on a little bit later so that you can get access to all of our training content. So thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Gareth Dyke. I worked in the UK, I've worked in the United States, I've worked in Ireland, hence my funny accent, publishing lots of academic papers, writing books, working on book chapters, and editing journals. So some experience over the years managing the process, writing and publishing academic articles. Now, as you'll be aware, of course, those of you joining us for our event today, it's not sufficient just to write papers. Lots of researchers do what I used to do, and that's just lie back in a hammock, metaphorically speaking, of course, and wait for those citations to keep coming in, for those citations to start rolling in. And of course, this is not the best approach if you want to build an academic brand, if you want people around the world to know about you and to know about your research. It's not sufficient just to publish papers. We have to think about how we can promote those papers, how we can maximize the impact of both our academic work and, of course, ourselves, our research groups, and our teams as academics. As Barnum, P.T. Barnum, the famous American circus owner and showman, was famous for having saying, if you don't promote yourself, something will happen. And that's, of course, nothing. So we would say in this presentation, academic branding is important. Academic branding does actually work. How you develop that brand around yourself, around your research, and around your group. Very important to think about this as a researcher as you get started in your career, or perhaps you're perhaps you're running a large research group. Perhaps you're already responsible for a large research group. It's all important. Of course, what we mean by academic branding is how you can build your profile as a researcher, how you can position your research within that profile, and how you can make sure that people around the world know about you as a researcher. So this presentation brought to you, of course, by Bentham Science Publishers and the team at the EdAnts Learning Lab. This presentation is all about how you can maximize your brand as a researcher. Now, of course, your impact, what difference your research makes, how many citations your research may get, this depends upon your readers. Here are some fun facts about your readers, of course. They haven't got much spare time to read. They want to read papers as fast as possible. They get frustrated if they struggle with understanding. And of course, most of the articles that people read every day as academics are not going to be essential reading. So as a writing and publishing academic, you should be applying writing techniques to keep your English simple and easy to follow, keeping in mind, of course, that most of your readers will not be native English speakers. We can help you with this at EdAnts. If you get in touch with us, we can give you discounts. We can give you access to our expert editing teams. So writing and publishing can be very important. Most of your readers will not be native speakers, and your readers, of course, are very busy academics. So how can we get around that issue to begin with in our training today? About 30,000 journal articles in medical sciences are published every week, and about 2 million academic journal articles are published every year. So you need, of course, to make sure that your research stands out amongst the crowd. How you can do this, how you can manage this as a researcher is a key skill, because, of course, if people don't notice your brand, if people don't notice your research, then they won't read your research, they won't use your research in their own articles. And that goes back to what we were saying just now about readers being the most important people of all in the academic writing and publishing process. It's also very important to think about perceptions of impact. We conducted a survey recently. We asked authors and we asked journal editors what's important to them about articles. Now, you can see how it breaks down. Authors, that's you, that's me, that's people writing up their research, tend to care about readership. They care that papers get read by others. So that means downloads, that means views. They care that papers get cited. And they also care that the research they publish has impact outside academia, has societal impact outside academia, whereas journal editors don't care much about that last one at all. They, of course, care about readership. They, of course, care that articles get cited. Journal editors are looking for different kinds of impact than academic researchers, than academic authors. Journal editors, at the end of the day, are trying to get bums on seats. They're trying to get people reading their journals. They're trying to sell copies of their magazines, whereas we as authors have much more esoteric demands, perceptions about what our impact is. And we'll come back to this in a minute. We'll talk about this in more detail in a moment, but I would like to encourage you. It's most important, of course, when you start writing an academic paper to have a think about what your message is. One of the most important things at the beginning of the process, if an editor can't work out your take-home message, the editor, will likely reject your paper before peer review. So, for example, Bentham Science publishers get thousands of submissions every year. And it's very important for the editors at the Bentham Science journals to be able to determine initially what's going to be a good article for the readership of the journal that they're responsible for. So many papers get rejected before they get sent for peer review, mainly based on this messaging idea. So if an editor can't work out your take-home message, they will reject your paper. You've got to convince the editor at that journal, at the Bentham Science publishers journals, that your article is important. Editors will think, if I'm interested, then my readers will be interested as well. And so, let me give you the secret formula to successful writing and publishing articles in high impact factor journals. The secret ingredient is to make sure that your topic, your question, is broadly interesting to an international multidisciplinary readership. Have a look at the kinds of papers that get published in Science, in Nature. They're not subject area specific. They're not tightly focused on narrow research areas that only you and 5 other people in the world are going to care about. They are international, multidisciplinary, pitched to that broad readership. So you do this as a researcher by employing your secret superpower, reading widely around your subject, checking news sites to see what's hot and what's not in science. How are the leaders in your field pitching their work to the big journals? And successful publishing researchers, of course, learn from mistakes. And as the great artist, one of my favorite artists, David Hockney, is famous for having said, often by stepping back, you get to see more. So one of the big secrets to successful academic article writing is to step back, is to make sure that your topic, that question, is broadly interesting to an international multidisciplinary readership. Now, authors submitting to journals they tend to want three things from their articles. They want speed, they want a decent impact factor, and they want high reach and readership. Of course, we all want our papers to come out in those journals as fast as possible. We all want a decent impact factor, and we all want as many people as possible to read the papers that we write and publish. So, speed, impact factor, and high reach and readership. So these are issues when you maximize your impact, when you think about which journal to select for your next article, where to go. And of course, as we relate this to impact, it's important for us to have a think about how those journal impact factors get calculated. In case you don't know, if a journal has an impact factor of 5, let's say, for a particular year, that just means that the total number of citable articles, so articles that can be used by other researchers, cited by other researchers, count up the total number of citable articles in the journal over a 2-year period, and then divide that into the total number of times articles were cited in the journal during the previous 2 years. So an impact factor of 5 is simply a measure of these two variables. And so, of course, the higher the impact factor, the better, in inverted commas, a particular journal is perceived to be in terms of impact. Research